when do you close the position in a profit and when do you close the position in a loss, right? What's your stop loss? What's your take profit level? All these different things. Now, why you must have a strategy in markets and just zero-sum games in general, your profit is someone else's loss. We've gone over this already in the course, okay? This is like one of the first videos. Thus, you're in direct competition with everyone, right? You make money, someone else lost money. It's a competition. You win a basketball match, someone else loses. So the only way you win competitions is by being better than your opponent. Maybe sometimes you get lucky and you're worse than your opponent and they just had a bad day. But if you want to win over a 20-year time frame, become a world champion, you have to be better. So the only way you're going to get better is through having a strategy, through having a game plan, right? Making millions from crypto requires you to become international level skilled at crypto, right? It is the same as competing in the top leagues of any sport. You need a coach, mentor, team, good environment, strategy, game plan, etc., etc., etc. So look at these photos, right? Top level soccer players, Mike Tyson, whoever the fuck that is. These are the top people in the top echelons of their certain sport. And for you to make $1 million from crypto, you don't necessarily have to be Mike Tyson level, but you have to be on the national or international scale for the equivalent of crypto, right? You want to become a millionaire from crypto. Do you know how little people have pulled that off? But you know what? Everyone, there's so many people who've made $1 million, but they don't keep it. I know guys who've made $100 million in crypto and they lost 95% of it, 90% of it. It's because crypto is fugazi money, and people without a strategy lose the money as fast as they make it. So if you want to make $1 million and keep it and pull it out and be able to keep growing it over time, you're going to have to get to NBA level, or maybe not NBA, but the one below NBA, WNBA level. That's women's, not W. Whatever the fuck the one below the top level of basketball it is. You're going to have to get to that level in order for you to make and keep $1 million from the market. The only way you get there is through having a coach. Every really good investor was learning from someone. Have a mentor. Every really good trader had a really good mentor. Every investor that made lots of money had a mentor. A team. Every single good trader or investor exists within high-level communities of really good traders and investors who they run ideas by and make money alongside. Good environment, right? The communities you exist in. Strategy, game plan. You need all of these components if you want to make millions of dollars. So if you have a bad strategy, you're going to go out onto the soccer field and you're going to get fucking hit in the head by a soccer ball. That's just what happens, right? If you come in with a strategy, you have a strategy where you have a teammate here, you're here, he passes it to you, you go in for the layup, you only do it if this guy is positioned further enough out that there's a gap for you, right? That's a strategy. That's a particular move, right? That's an example. You have a game plan. Okay? That's what you need to be successful in the market. So let's break down each of these criterias and let's get super boring and talk about what each of these means. So entry and exit criteria is like, what is the data that you're analyzing? What's the sentiment that you're looking out for? What is it exactly that you need to see in order for you to buy? And you have to be specific. Is there a particular data set that you like using? Is it an intuition-based decision where you need to feel the fear? How do you determine the entry and also the exit? What's your exit criteria? When you bought because you had a thesis for something to play out. What is the thesis that you need to see play out? When the thesis plays out, how do you exit the positions? Is it all at once or is it over a period of time? How do you know when the thesis is played out? What are you looking for to sell? Is the data real or fake data? Are you using good data? Is there fundamental analysis to check off on this sort of entry and exit criteria, right? And then we get sort of into what I was already saying then, the validation and invalidation criteria. So when you're investing, you don't use stop losses. When my algo tells me to buy, I don't use a stop loss. The fuck? Why would I use a stop loss? Stop losses don't work for investments. You use stop losses for trading, but investing, you use what's called an invalidation and validation of a thesis. So if you own a coin in crypto and you're investing in it for the long term, people think that, I'm allowed to hold this thing down 90% because it's a long-term hold. No. you have to have an invalidation criteria. If a coin goes down 90%, it was invalidated before it went down 90%. If you were paying attention, it told you that it was not going up and you could have sold, right? So the invalidation criteria minimizes your downside because it gives you a point to exit. And the validation of a thesis would instead be the opposite. It's when you know when to sell. How do you know when to exit? Well, you bought because you thought, if I was to give you an example of this, Toshi, right? My thesis with Toshi is Coinbase has millions of retail. They send them to Base. They all buy Toshi. So my validation, my exit criteria is I want to be selling into the millions of users coming from Coinbase onto Base. That's who I want to sell to. So if I want to exit my position in my strategy, I have to sell into that person, right? So win rate, right? If you were to look at 100 different positions you entered following a particular strategy, how many won and how many lost? So I measured the win rate with my Hunter algorithms. It's around an 84% win rate since 2019, I think it was. So that's like 6 years or so, right? Pretty good. Now you also want to look at the risk to reward ratio, more so if you're a trader. So when you trade, right, you have, let's look at trading. Let me show you. Excuse me, keep drinking this sparkling water. It keeps fucking bubbling in my mouth. But let me give you an example of this. So let's go to the 5-minute chart, okay? So with trading is a lot more about the specifics of the data than it is about intuition and more fundamental analysis. Trading is really about technicals, okay? And because it's about technicals, it's about numbers, you can get a lot more data crunching based sort of strategies. So for example, maybe your strategy is to maybe buy support, right? Maybe your strategy was to buy here, and you put your stop loss here, right? And your take profit maybe is right, maybe here. Let's just pretend this is a strategy, right? Your strategy is long the third touch of support. Let's say that's your strategy. What, first touch, second touch. Your strategy is buy the third touch, right? Who knows if this is profitable? Let's just assume it is. So you buy here, and then your stop loss is here, and your take profit is here. So you have, if we just measure out the risk and reward, long position, entry, exit. Oh, fuck. Why is it doing that? Boom. So let's put a stop loss at... All right, it's 0.5%. Let's pretend that's 1%, right? In this example, you have a risk to reward ratio of 10. So for every time, so for one loss, you make 10 win. You risk 1 and you make 10 in this setup. Now, this is one component of a strategy. You also have to look at the win rate, right? So let's say the win rate was 20%. You won 20. Let's do it different. Let's say the win rate was 50%. So 50% of trades lost 1. 50% of trades won 10. So in 10 trades, let's do 1% and 10%. 1%, 10%. So in 10 trades, you lost 1% once and gained 10% 9 times. So you can see that this is a profitable strategy, right? The win rate and the risk to reward ratio combine together to make this a profitable strategy. This is assuming that the win rate is true and that you can execute the strategy with liquidity and all the different things we talked about, right? Is this tax efficient? Is it scalable? You know, have you back tested it, forward tested it? So that's just a little example there. Back testing, so pretty simple. How did the strategy do in the past? Did this work before? Forward testing, has it worked for you? Have you made money from it? Scalability, Can you do this strategy to make you millions of dollars, or is it only, for a small amount of money? Taxes, if you're trading, are you getting destroyed by taxes? Would you be better off building a strategy that's more tax efficient? For example, in Germany, I think it is, you do not get taxed on capital gains if you hold it for longer than a year. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Might have to Google that. But like, for example, in Germany, a better strategy would be something maximizing for removing that taxation. So maybe a more investing strategy versus trading. And the EV, so expected value. After factoring in all